Now, President Trump does say Russia will face, quote, severe consequences if a deal is not reached soon to end the war with Ukraine. Trump made the comment a short time ago. You watched it here at the big reveal of the Kennedy Center Honors nominees while speaking with reporters. Just before that, as we mentioned, the president spoke virtually with Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky and European leaders ahead of Trump's face-to-face meeting with Russian President Putin. Zelensky told Trump that Putin is, quote, trying to apply pressure on all sectors of the Ukrainian front in an attempt to show that Russia is capable of occupying all of Ukraine. The high-profile and high-stakes meeting, as I mentioned, between Trump and Putin set for Friday right here in Anchorage, Alaska. I do want to bring in a guest to discuss all of this, including the conversation between Trump and Zelensky, as well as what to expect with Trump and Putin. Let's bring in John Hardy, the Russia Program, Deputy Director at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Thanks for having me on, of course. And first off, I do want to ask you overall, because that virtual meeting took place earlier on today, and this is 2 days before Trump and Putin are going to come face to face. So when you talk about the significance overall of Trump's speaking with Zelensky and other European leaders, how significant is that? Especially considering the timing here. Yeah, I think coordination and kind of presenting a united front going into the Alaska summit is very important. Putin is going to be trying to paint a Ukraine and the Europeans as being transit parties and redirect Trump's pressure onto them. So it's very important that Trump kind of shut that down. And that starts now in the lead up to the summit by presenting a united front and getting on the same page with our partners. How has the relationship that we've seen over the past several months kind of changed between President Trump and President Zelensky there, especially considering the confrontation that they had inside the Oval Office just months ago? The relationship has come a long way since that contentious Oval Office meeting that I'm sure your viewers all remember back in late February. I think, it's his ups and downs, but I think President Zelensky has found a way to speak to President Trump that is effective, and I think, frankly, that they've had some help from Putin. A dude is, obstinate in his refusal to stop. Striking deep within Ukraine, including in civilian targets like maternity hospitals. Like those strikes in particular have really resonated with Trump and helped convince him that it is, in fact, Putin and not Ukraine. That is an obstacle piece. What should we expect from that meeting between Trump and Putin taking place? Once again in Anchorage, Alaska on Friday, anything specific that we should be watching for? Well, it's important to temper expectations on outcomes, and frankly, I think that peace will be impossible so long as Putin conditions a ceasefire on maximalist demands that are just, non-starters or Keitha, like this demand for withdrawal from Ukrainian withdrawal from the rest of the Donbass. That's not going to happen, and President Zelensky has made that clear. So part of President Trump's mission in Alaska is to kind of start working on Putin, and I'm persuading him that if he wants peace, he's going to have to be more willing to compromise. What is it that both Russia and Ukraine maybe want that they're not willing to give up? We've heard a lot about land and the possibility of that being involved. But what are maybe the red lines there that they're not willing to cross? Well, for Ukraine, I think it's just important to remember the overall objective of remaining independent and secure and having a prosperous future. And that's really incompatible with some of the demands that Moscow has made, things like demilitarization of Ukraine, for example, putting really harsh caps on Ukraine's military signs and capabilities. That's a non-starter. He has made that clear the Europeans have, and actually, the Trump administration has said that's a non-starter as well. So, things like that. Muskies make clear who's not going